Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of Nobody Told Us, Finnish Career Edition. Today we're going to talk about trade unions in Finland and organizations that help and represent employees and their work environments and their interests in their workplace. Today we have a great guest, Anne, who is part of a union and is here to tell us a little bit or a lot of all these questions that we have and that we're wondering. Welcome, Anne, and thank you, Rebekka, for being here today.
Thanks for having me.
And there's so many questions that we probably have and we can bombard you right now. But maybe, first of all, would you mind telling us a little bit of why unions exist in Finland?
The why is quite easy. It's the same thing everywhere around the world where there are trade unions. It's because there's strength in numbers. So if you are working similar field or have similar background, you have a lot of reasons to want to get together, form a group, and that group named a union when it's about work to defend your rights as a worker, get more advantages at work, overall just protect the work life of the employees that are within that group. That's what unions are created for.
Great. In that sense, do you think that everyone should be part of a union, or is there specific individuals that should be joining?
It's always a personal decision to join a union. There are many things that factor into that decision. It's my personal opinion that there are only benefits joining unions in Finland. Like other countries in the world, Finland unions are perfectly legal. There's nothing illegal going on there. There is no risk of getting in trouble with the police, for instance, or nothing like that. Second of all, they are very common and normal. About 55% of the Finnish working population is currently a member of some union, and it won't damage your career in any way if you're a member of a union in Finland. Once again, it's very normal. If your boss knows you're a member of a union, they might actually be part of the same union. They're not going to withhold promotions because of it or think of you as an employee because of your union membership. There is white-collar worker unions in Finland, which can be a bit original for some people. So you don't have to have a factory job or more what we have in mind often for unions, like drivers because they are strikes or factory workers because they are strikes. But in Finland, it's very common if you're highly educated to also be in a white-collar worker union. And striking is not the first method acting when you're in these unions. It's really negotiation based in Finland. It's all about finding out how we can all make the best out of a situation. So I think it's great, but it's a personal decision. Unions can be quite political organizations. Most of them have some political talking points about government policies, economical policies, especially working laws. So you don't agree with the talking point of the unions you can be a member of. I would understand you don't want to be their members. They still provide great protection. So trade-off. It's up to you to see what you feel comfortable with, but there are the advantages in my opinion.
Yeah, I feel it's what you already mentioned. Like unions in Finland are so different from what many of us know from our home countries. For example, in my country, they are associated with certain industries, with kind of social upheaval, street fights, if you want to go to the extreme and so on. So I think you pointed out very well how different it is in Finland and kind of how normal. But it brings me a little bit back to the question, like, why should anyone join a union, especially if we have this background of thinking, for example, that I have from my home country about unions. So what are maybe some specifics of how anyone who is working can profit from being a member of a union?
Generally speaking, unions in Finland provide the same kind of services, so to speak. Main one being legal advice, counseling for work life. So unions can review your work contract to ensure that it's top-notch and it fits whatever has been said, especially if there is like a language barrier here. If you don't read Finnish and your contract is in Finnish, for instance, that can be very useful for people with foreign background like us. That can also be if they are disputes at work, then they come in with some advice on how to handle the situation, if there is any cool things that can be done. Obviously, we're not encouraging anyone to get into disputes at work, but it happens. It's part of the work life. So that's a big aspect of union. The second big aspect usually is career coaching, career services, advice on salary negotiation, what's normal in your industry, what ranges of salary you can be expecting, how to advance your career. These type of things are rather common services provided by unions. Big service that people forget about quite often is collective bargaining agreements. This is a big topic. Finland thinks in the work-life progress because of negotiations. Who is doing these negotiations? Usually it's a union and companies. Every industry in Finland almost has some type of collective bargaining agreements. There are different types. I could go on about it, but what you need to know is that in Finland there's the law about work, and then there's the collective bargaining agreement, the local agreement in your company, and then there's your work contract. This is kind of the like legal structure of work life. Unions negotiate these agreements more often than not, and they provide all kinds of advantages: for vacation, pay for overtime, to leave. All kinds of work-related safety and benefits are in these agreements. There is about 89% of the Finnish work population that is currently protected by these agreements that are negotiated by unions. So that's kind of a big advantage, is something you would like to support. Because you're benefiting from it. So it's kind of smart to keep supporting the unions that are negotiating these benefits. And then you can influence the unions are negotiating in your name if you're a member. I think that's something quite smart as international members to remember, that these are political organizations. They make negotiations for work-related life, which is very important when you're moving into a country. So you might want to be a member to, write in there and be like, what do you do for internationals? What about us? Especially now that the government is doing some changes, immigration policies. These are good allies. Like, the organization that's going to have your back, work-related matters all the time. Yeah, and then most unions have like more like leisure types of benefits, like discounts on services, all of that. And I like to think of them as like the cherry on top. Like if you don't have legal needs that year or career needs that year, you can keep your membership in the union. And most of the time, just with these like leisure types of benefits, it's going to pay back your membership for the year. So be a member, but don't be too passive of a member. Still, take advantage of whatever is being offered to you. It's my advice.
Good advice. I would maybe ask from a point of view, I just moved to Finland. I don't know and don't understand how professionally how to move around just yet. And I just found out that unions exist. Do you recommend me to join right away, to investigate more or further and maybe get recommendations? What would you suggest in this case?
Well, I think there are two paths. Like if you already have a job, because you're moving for work or you already found work, and I would ask my colleagues around me like, hey, I heard about this union thing. What do you think? Are you a member? Which unions are you a member of? Because in Finland, there are many unions. Sometimes you can be a member, you can be eligible for more than one union. So check with your colleagues. Maybe they have preferences. Maybe in your company, there is a steward. Sub-steward are personnel representatives that are trained by unions and kind of represent the union's interest in the company and help with all of these negotiations I was talking about. Maybe find out who that person is and ask them questions about unions. Generally speaking, if you have a job, probably a good idea to be joining a union that is fitting either your education. One big criteria for eligibility is like, what's your background education? Bachelor, masters of science, of arts, or either engineering, like all of these things. You belong to different unions, or what is your current job? You can't be part of the construction workers union, for instance, if you're not yourself working in construction. So yeah, and if you don't have a job, then simply look out for more information, figure out what these things are, and then up your mind whether or not you would be interested. Maybe get in touch with some people that work there or people that are members. And once you get a job, then you're a bit more ready and prepared to make that decision for yourself.
Would you say it makes sense to join a union while you still do not have a job or while you're currently unemployed? Does it make sense at all, or should you wait until you actually have employment?
It's a very good question. Of unions here, especially for higher education or for higher educated workers, have the possibility to be a member as a student. if you're in a Finnish university or University of Applied Sciences or even vocational education sometimes, you can already become a student member of a union that usually has fee or very, very small fees that you have to pay per year. I mean, it's hard because all unions have different fees, but 40 euros per year as a student. So that's something you can definitely consider. And then they provide all of these benefits for you already as a student. If you have like small jobs, student jobs, or if you're looking into entering work life and would like some trainings about how to navigate the labor market in Finland. That's something my union provides for people with international background, how to navigate the market, salary information. It's always good to know before you start applying for jobs how much you should be paid, kind of career path you can have in that field in Finland is something unions can help you with. So definitely if you don't have a job, still very much worth it. Training, once again, just use the benefits if you do join.
Yeah, that's a great point. Actually, what comes to my mind with this topic is that if you are working and you find out that you are about or might get laid off soon, that you should already be part of it with a minimum of 6 months. But maybe you can correct me on this.
So I think there are two things that you have in mind at the moment. There is unions and how they can help you if you get laid off or if you're in that situation where they are called change negotiations going on in your company where there might be restructurations of the workforce. And the second thing I think you were thinking about is unemployment funds, which can give you money if you end up being unemployed. These are two separate things. First, I'm going to talk about what in these cases. Different unions have different policies about whether or not they're going to serve you based on how long you've been a member. So quite often, if you are already in a pickle to the work life, whether you have a dispute with your employer, whether you might be laid off because of change negotiations, were not already a member with this incident started, and you might be refused service because you haven't kind of the right to. This is to avoid people just shopping memberships just like it would be Netflix subscriptions and end up only paying €5 for just being a member for 1 month instead of having a yearly membership fee, because that's how it's work. They work on yearly memberships. And the reason is you use any of the services, especially legal services in private sector, these are quite expensive. You call your union once in a year, that probably already covers for the cost of your membership that you paid that year. But that's kind of like the sums of money that we are looking at, like for equivalence. So yeah, might be better to join before having problems. It's usually the advice. And there are unemployment funds. These are different types of organizations or institutions. They work in collaboration with unions. Unions work with an unemployment fund. They are not the same thing. Unemployment funds, what do they do? It's quite good. Highly recommend people looking into it. If you become unemployed in Finland or the Finnish government that gives social benefits, will pay you around €800. I think with the changes in the law, that may have changed to even a bit less, but it's about €800 per month, or at least used to be 6 months ago. And that's it. It doesn't depend on how good your salary was. It's just that's the amount. If you have been working and paying taxes in Finland, obviously. If you're part of these employment funds, which are also called SA, AASSA in Finnish, or työttömyyskassa, then you can improve revenues while you're unemployed. These organizations, same thing, work with a yearly fee. It's kind of a fund. Everyone puts money in the bank, and if something happens to someone, they get to take money out of the bank. So you pay your membership fee. Depending on the unemployment funds, can be somewhere between 60 something to 130. There's a wide range out there. Once again, it will depend on the industry and who is the typical member of that unemployment fund. Roughly, if your salary is like €3,500 per month, you could expect earning from the unemployment fund if you become unemployed something around €2,000. It will depend on your situation, but it's much better than what the government is giving you. It's minimum almost double, I would dare to say, than what the government gives. Yes.
Great.
And then you need to be a member. Yes, about the time you need to be a member. And then you need to be a member of these unemployment funds for nowadays, with the changes in the law, minimum 12 months. It doesn't have to be 12 months in a row. So if you have like student jobs and you work 6 months and then you don't work for 3 months and then you have another student job, they will only count the month since you've been a member and since you've been paid a salary. And once that hits 12, it can be over 3 years. It doesn't really matter. But once that hits 12, then if you become unemployed, you can claim the money from the fund. That is how it works. There are also requirements of how much money you're being paid. But usually if you have a part-time work and you work about 18, 20 hours per week and you're being paid, I think something around, don't want to say numbers, I can't remember. But if you have a regular part-time job, usually you're gonna be eligible to get the money back. Your job.
And well, I want to ask about practicalities again, because that was also something that I was very insecure about in the beginning. So you have the unions and the unemployment funds. If I join a union, does it mean I'm also part of an unemployment fund, or do I kind of have to keep this very separate? Or since it's really important, as you said, to be part of this. So
Yeah.
if you really want to make sure that you are a member of this, if you're, for example, a member of a union, how can I find out if I'm already also a member of an unemployment fund? That would be my question.
A good thing to look at is actually your taxes. Finland membership and unemployment fund membership is tax deductible. So when you pay these memberships, these institutions will tell to the tax institution, by the way, this person is our member. They're paying us membership fee. This is the amount of our fee. And when you do your taxes, we'll see in the deductions of your taxes, you've paid to these institutions. So that's a good way to check if they're in your deductions an unemployment fund. That's one way. If you pay your unemployment fund through your union, usually it will only say your union, your papers. You can call your union, very simple. They say, hey, just want to make sure, am I a member of the unemployment fund that you work with also? Quite sure most unions have personal file pages where you can check that information. I know in my union it's the case. I can't say for sure, but this probably can be checked also independently online from your profile page. Most unions work with an unemployment fund. So if you know what unemployment fund your union is working with, that can help you figure it out. You can choose to be within another unemployment fund that the one your union works with. You can choose to be only part of an unemployment fund and not part of the union. In that case, if you decide to join a union later on, you can decide to move your unemployment fund from the one you used to be a member of to the one your is working with. Can often be good because the one your union is working with might be a bit cheaper than general ones that accept one. That's rather easy to do. You just have to basically open your new membership at the new unemployment fund and then you close your old one and then you don't lose rights. And people from unions and unemployment fund will help you figure that out so you don't lose your rights. In no one's advantage. No one wants to.
Those are great points, which reminds me that there's different kinds of unions and, as mentioned, unemployment funds. But maybe going back to what maybe you would recommend us when looking into what union is or we qualify in. As I'm an entrepreneur, so maybe I don't qualify specifically to options that employ people who qualified and so on. Is there something that you would kindly guide us on what to observe or check?
So if you're an entrepreneur, there is one union for business owner. It's called Suomen Yrittäjät, and then you can just join that. So for sure, if you're self-employed, want to join the entrepreneur union. A lot of the unions for people with higher education, so except entrepreneur members, know that at Economist it's the case. Have higher education. There is the confederation of unions. Unions to get together to have even more power. It's called KAVA, KAVA. They have a page, which is www.senexi.fi, which means be a member, basically. So that's JASENEKSI, Senexi, there's kind of a quiz. that you can do. Like, this is my education, this is the kind of job I do, and it will tell you which unions you can be a member of based on this criteria. There are other union confederations, which are STK and TK, STTK. And I don't know if they have a system for that. I think SAC is a bit more blue collar of union. So if you have a very industrial job, I think you have more choices in SAC and STTK types of unions than in Akava. It's only for people that have higher education. So yeah, these are kind of 3 sources of information you can look at.
These are great.
If you're looking,
I will add them in the description under the video or the audio.
I will give you the links. Then you're looking at what unemployment fund you can join if you're not interested in unions or joining the fund your union is working with. There's one place where all of them are listed, and that's quite nice, called FYE. There they have all of the different unemployment funds listed and don't have clear criteria who can join. Usually quite flexible depending on the unemployment funds, but they have the fees. So that can be good information. They tell you how much each fees cost. So that's already a good way to make your decision. The most general unemployment fund you can join, no matter your background, is TK. Most people that are not part of unions and don't know anything about anything are members of TK. It's, for instance, quite more expensive than COCO, the fund for people with higher education. YTK is something like 100 euros, whereas COCO is 63 euros right now per year. The reason for the differences in fees is quite basic. If you have higher education, you're less likely to be unemployed and more likely to have good salaries. So since they see you as low risk, the membership fee is less expensive than in YTK, where they take more diverse backgrounds, know what your unemployment risk is, so they ask you a bit more money because they're more afraid you're going to get unemployed. Like that. For the fees for unions, same thing. It's going to depend on the union, but there are 2 big models on how they're going to make you pay or decide how much you should pay the union. The model is very easy. It's flat amount. It's the same amount for any member. You pay it once a year. It usually range is around 200 euros, 150 to 150, depending if it's blue collar, white collar. It's kind of the range, flat fees. And then some unions prefer to do percentage of then never goes higher than say 5. That's quite high already, but that's what I have in mind right now. I wouldn't have clearer information about this, but these are the two models.
This is great.
Thanks. That's already super helpful to know, because I guess that influences also quite a lot for many people where they would like to join and what makes sense to them. So it's good to kind of be aware of these differences in the structure. I have one maybe a little bit next level question. If you're already working, you're part of a union, but you kind of feel you want to maybe get more involved or influence things within the union. So can you give us, let's say, a little bit high level overview of what any of us could do within the union to help out the purpose?
So a lot of unions also work as communities or networks, and they have local chapters in every city that organizes events or networking, get together. So that's a good way to network and meet some people in your industry sometimes. That's one way to get involved in a light manner. Said unions are political organizations, so they usually have a policy advisor, whose title something like a political advocate or something policy advisor. If you have strong political opinions or if you want them to take on board more international people agenda, for instance, if that's your background, these are good people to contact. Usually their emails are available on the website. You can send an email like, hey, I'm a member. This is my profile. This is what I think. Do you think? Is there something you can do about it? I'm happy to get involved. Something you can do. Us in the agenda, political conversations, all the things you can do. And this is going to be more in your workplace to, talk about your union with your colleagues, form people with similar international backgrounds about these things, because I found that because my friend told me. Now, my mission is to tell as many people as possible about these things because it is quite comfortable and not career saver, in my opinion. I've been a member 4 years before I started to work for a union, so I sold on the program before I started to sell it myself. Just put it like that. You can get involved in your company by talking to people about unions. Then you can become in your company a shop steward. That you can get training from the union you're a member of. That is usually ongoing every year. Tell you a bit more about how to be a good personnel representative. What are the things that are to be negotiated. Make sure you're on top of what's in the current collective bargaining agreement or whatever agreement is currently ongoing in your company. Just make sure that other employees know that you know what the employees would like, so you can then yourself advocate for that. And there are these negotiations with the rest of the company about like things we can improve for work life here, etc. These are, I think, the 3 ways to be involved as a union member.
What great points, I have to say. Especially, there's a lot of people that want to volunteer and maybe advocate, as you said, for many other topics that might not be mentioned in the daily conversation. So it's a good way to put yourself out there and have a little extra feeling of purpose too. And in this sense, you mentioned that before you worked for a union, you were already advocating. What is something of your story that you could share with the rest of us that made you feel maybe belonging or excited about? Would you mind sharing?
I mean, sure, no, love to say it. So I joined the union at my friend at the time was already a member of. That's how I heard about it, and that's how I joined, because I word of mouth. And also from my personal background, I'm native French, so Finnish union culture is way forward than French one, but there are still similarities. So I understood the concepts were. So that's kind of why I joined. And the reason I joined Suomen Economit, which is the union I'm a member of, which is a union for people with business or education in Finland. Well, because I have this education, was a student for an exchange in a Finnish university, as part of the student association that also works with the union. So I kind of already was in this circle. Everything is available in English at Suomen Economit. That's a big point in their favor because I work related questions. I could go on their page and use the search bar and be like, this is happening at work. Can I get some information from them about it? I am Google and Google translations. Like there is some information out there for sure, but there is nothing like firsthand confirmed information that yes, this is your situation. This is good. Yeah. And once I've been a member, into some pickles with employers. There are a lot of internationals out there have some issues at work. So I was in a very mild, nothing crazy, dispute with my employer about how over time being compensated. And I knew what was written in the collective bargaining agreement. So I had a call with my legal counselor just to make sure I understood everything correctly. So we could go over the numbers of how much I had been paid, how much I had actually worked. Indeed, it didn't add up. Some was not there. So then I could go back to my employer with that information and just saying that, yes, I checked the numbers with my union. They don't add up. This is how much you owe me was enough pressure for them to change their mind and then me correctly. So it was the second year I was a member of the union. So firsthand I got, good value for my membership. And down the road, I got unemployed. So I was very happy that I had taken the decisions to be a member of the fund that my union recommended. That sustained me for a couple months until I found again. During that period of time, I had career counseling from my union. And funny part is that I got the job in the union after that period. That's kind of funny that I got career counseled into working for them, which we didn't know at the time, but that's still what happened.
What a nice story, but interesting how things happen sometimes. And now it's great that you're sharing to all of us, not only your experience, but how we can benefit. Rebekka, do you have something in mind?
Yes, first, thanks for sharing. That was really interesting and again showed, I think, that everyone can really benefit from being a member of a union because you never know what will happen. Nothing is secure, so it's good to have that support or know that is there.
Yeah, nowadays it's normal to be unemployed. It's gonna happen to almost
Exactly.
all of us. And careers are not linear. You're not gonna do 40 years for the same employer. And economics are tough. So big changes are ahead. And that means that we probably need to watch our back a little bit. And that's what unions are for. So agreed.
Yeah, it's definitely good to know that there is, and I feel especially for us internationals that we are not, let's say, so familiar as well with the laws and regulations and what's going on. Like unions can be a great help, and I feel, at least from my experience, still quite underutilized help in the international community. So I feel it's really important that we got the word out there today as well as a little part to maybe raise the awareness. I have our classic last question for you that we ask everyone since our podcast is called Nobody Told Us. So can you tell us something? What is something that nobody told you and that you really wished you had known before?
I'd love to be able to answer, unions and employment funds, but that was not the case. Someone told me. I'm very grateful to them. Nobody told me when I moved here is that you would like to attend the integration courses like this, especially because they provide a very good language learning opportunity. You actually only have a limited amount of time during which you can take nowadays in these courses. So I think if you've been in a country working for more than 2 years, you lose your right to be eligible to this integration courses. It's kind of sad because when I was unemployed, I was like, oh, I could do the courses, and then I couldn't do the courses because I had been there too long. So if you're planning to be here for a longer time, you're not tight money-wise, probably if you're a spouse of someone moving to Finland for work, then I do recommend that you go to these courses. I think they provide a good value for what I heard from friends that went, even though you might be higher educated and everything about how to write a CV might be a bit painful to go through because definitely just for the language learning opportunity, I'm very sad that I missed it. If I had known, I would have probably done things differently.
Yeah, that's a great point. I have heard so many Finns telling me that they don't know that this exists. So even for Finns to pass the word and let everyone else know around them. Thank you so much, Anne. I don't know, Rebekka, any other questions?
That's it for me. Just thanks, Anne, for taking the time and sharing your wisdom with us.
Yes.
The information I share is as accurate as possible. Things change quite fast in that field. Every union, everyone has their own criteria and things, but happy to share the information. And if you have questions, like happy to answer. People can find me easily on LinkedIn or whatever and shoot me a message like, hey, I'm thinking about unions. I'm not sure what it means. Explain it to me. I'm happy to do it one-on-one also. But this is great material. I think I'll use it myself once it goes out.
Great, amazing.
Amazing. Thank you
Thank
so
you very
much.
much. We will leave all your contact information and all these links mentioned in the episode in the description below. Thank you everyone for listening. Thank you, Rebekka. Thank you very much for the great conversation. See you next time.
Good, Dafne. Take care. Bye bye.